Greetings, one and all, and welcome to Combat Critiques. In this installment, let's have a look at the fight between Aragorn and Lurtz from the Fellowship of the Ring. First things first, let's assess both parties' objective. Aragorn needs to save the Fellowship and prevent the Ring from falling into the hands of Saruman's Uruk-hai. If that happens, then it's game over. But he also doesn't know where the other members of the Fellowship are. Most importantly, the hobbits. But he has found Boromir, who has been wounded by multiple arrows. Even the strongest warrior can be killed by a single arrow, and he's been hit 3 times. That's all she wrote for him, but Aragorn isn't going to give up if there's even the slightest inkling of a chance that he can be saved. Lurtz is completely loyal to Saruman. He doesn't know what the hobbits are carrying, but he knows his orders. Saruman wants them alive and unspoiled. Now he believes that the 2 hobbits he's looking for have been taken by his forces, but in actuality, it was Merry and Pippin. So he thinks that he's already won, but he can't let Aragorn spoil that. More than that though, orcs, and by extension Uruk-hai, enjoy killing. So Lurtz isn't going to pass up on that opportunity, especially when it throws itself at him. But now, let's get on to the fight. So Aragorn manages to tackle Lurtz as the Uruk is about to execute Boromir. I have to say, he managed to get there exceptionally quietly despite running over all those leaves and loose brush. Lurtz was caught completely off guard. But you might ask, why didn't Aragorn lead with his sword? That way he could have skewered Lurtz. This is a fair point, but we have to keep in mind that Aragorn is still trying to save the Fellowship. He still has to hope that Boromir can be saved. Now, a sword tip focuses all of the force behind it into a single point. While this might have impaled Lurtz, it has less surface area and won't move him as much. So if Aragorn had led with his sword, Lurtz might have released his arrow in pain once the sword struck him, and thus Boromir would have been killed instantly. Oh, he would have still been knocked down when Aragorn's body hit him, but by that point, it would have already been too late. But now, Lurtz has grabbed himself a sword and a shield, thanks to all the Uruks that Boromir managed to kill. This gives him a bit of an advantage over Aragorn, who is only armed with his hand and a half sword. Note that he doesn't have Anduril yet in the films. The two briefly get into the bind before Lurtz shoves Aragorn away. Thankfully, this isn't like when Star Wars does the bind, where the 2 characters will just push against each other for several seconds. Notice how Aragorn is leveraging his blade to be inside Lurtz's. If he had gotten control for just a bit longer, he could have pivoted his blade and performed a draw cut as he pulled his sword back. Lurtz's weapon was on the outside, where it wasn't effective. Fortunately for Lurtz, he was able to use raw strength to push Aragorn aside. In the books, Uruk-hai were slightly shorter and weaker than a full-grown man, but the movies made them to be a bit taller and stronger, so Lurtz has the advantage there.
I'm a pioneer. I'm an explorer. I'm a human, and I'm coming.
Lurtz then hurls his shield at Aragorn. Normally, this would be a terrible move, but he lucked out in that its spikes dug into the tree and pinned Aragorn to it. What's more, Aragorn dropped his weapon while he was stunned. That is a genuinely terrible spot to be in. Locked in place and disarmed is almost certainly a guaranteed death. Thankfully, Aragorn manages to use some of that handy adrenaline to pull the shield out just far enough to get his head out, nearly getting it split open by Lurtz. He follows this with a swift half-punch to Lurtz's stomach, but the Uruk is armored and likely fueled by his own adrenaline, and thus it doesn't accomplish much. It's a little difficult to see just how Lurtz strikes Aragorn here, but he is sent tumbling to the ground. Being off your feet is also a terrible position. It limits your ability to maneuver, and your enemy can then pin you down. Grappling is generally how a lot of 1v1 fights end. But Lurtz then does a big telegraphed swing, which gives Aragorn time to roll out of the way. Aragorn then kicks Lurtz to stun him momentarily, then plunges his dagger into Lurtz's leg. Lurtz is seriously lucky that that didn't hit his femoral artery. That can lead to a lot of blood loss very quickly. But pain can fuel power, and Lurtz retaliates by punching Aragorn before he can withdraw his blade. I knew a guy in my martial arts classes that was much the same. Any noticeable hit would just empower him more. Scary stuff, that. Lurtz's punch was so powerful that Aragorn is seeing stars, and receives a headbutt and a half punch to his ribs for his transgressions. As he's sent sprawling, Lurtz stumbles back, and we can clearly see that the dagger went all the way through his thigh and out the back. That has to hurt, no matter the chemicals your body is dumping out. He rips the dagger out and hurls it at Aragorn, who has managed to recover his sword and bats it away. Fun fact, that wasn't supposed to have happened in the script. The dagger was supposed to be thrown much more toward Viggo Mortensen's side, but it was accidentally thrown directly at him. He actually batted it aside for real. But moving on from that, pulling out whatever has caused a wound in your body will cause you to lose blood faster. Now, obviously in the middle of a fight like this, you can't afford to be hampered by the dagger in your leg, but if you aren't in that situation, don't pull it out. Keep it in until help gets there. But Lurtz isn't to be dissuaded, and grabs his own sword again and charges Aragorn. The ranger deflects his first strike while getting back on his feet. Nice move there. And the two meet blade to blade. The next few strikes are difficult to see, as they only last for a few frames, and the camera is more focused on their faces, but Aragorn presses the offensive, and Lurtz can't quite keep up. An interesting point to note is that Aragorn mostly keeps his weapon in front of his body, ensuring that it both protects him and can quickly strike his opponent. That's something that's not done much these days. Most media goes for the huge baseball bat swings that would leave you exposed and likely killed. It's nice to see this attention to detail. This culminates in Lurtz having his right arm dismembered and being stabbed through the gut. In real life, a wound to the stomach like that will kill you unless you get medical attention, but it will be slow and extremely painful. And that's not even getting into the blood loss from his severed arm. Actually, that might help with the pain, as you might pass out from shock and blood loss. It's still likely game over, but hey, at least you won't be in pain for as long. Hooray? But because Lurtz is a psychopath, he pulls Aragorn's blade farther into himself. That has to be excruciating, but I'll give him credit for committing to the bit at least. He wanted to psych Aragorn out as much as possible before he went out.
Man, I know I'm gonna get got, but I'm gonna get mine more than I get got, though.
It's also an interesting detail that Aragorn's sword didn't just straight up skewer him and was stopped a short way into Lurtz's body. This likely has to do with Lurtz's armor. Granted, it doesn't seem to be brigandine or a coat of plates, but it seems like they were meant for more mobility rather than protection with this setup. But Aragorn recovers and decapitates Lurtz, resulting in a victory for him. Granted, Merry and Pippin were still taken and need to be rescued, and Frodo and Sam now have to go it on their own. But ultimately, that was the best thing for Middle-earth. The ring was sentient, and it would have wormed its way into their heads like it did to Boromir. They would have had to have separated sooner or later. But this does technically make this a Pyrrhic victory for Aragorn. He won the fight, but the Fellowship was broken. Overall, this fight was very well put together without many issues at all. A+, but I would like to thank you for watching. What did you think about this fight? Leave your thoughts in the comments below, and leave a like on this video if you're so inclined. And may you all have a weapon in each hand.